Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I am Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Well, today has been quite a momentous day, hasn't it? Yes, we got to hear from your Attorney General, we got to hear from your governor, and we got to hear from a whole new cast of characters about new and innovative ways that they are going to save lives, or put in other words, how they are going to disarm you, the lawful and responsible gun owner of Washington State. So let's go back, let's rehash, let's do a little armchair quarterbacking about today's press conference down in Tukwila and spend a few minutes and talk about all the unconstitutional gun control bills coming your way this legislative session. Okay, before we get going down the road we're going down, proud to announce that this video is being brought to you by Security Gun Club. That's right, Washington's nicest indoor shooting facility is located right here in Woodinville, Washington. Now, you hear me brag about the facility, you hear me brag about the people, and you hear me brag about the curriculum and the training they got over there, which I do think exceeds anyone else in the industry. But this month, I need to brag on the opportunity that you have for some last-minute Christmas shopping ideas. Because if you visit Security Gun Club online right here, you will see that, oh my gosh, you can buy online gift cards. That's right. You can buy a gift card for a specific dollar amount so your friends can go in and find whatever they want. You can buy them a gift card for a standard membership. You can buy them a gift card for one of their classes. And here's the good news. If you go to securitygunclub.com, that is security with an E, and you use the promo code WAGUNS22, that is WAGUNS22, all one word, you will receive 5% off. So for more information, visit my good friends at securitygunclub.com. Okay, so listen, the issue we're talking about today is this press conference, which took place this morning down in beautiful Tukwila, Washington, attended by your governor and attorney general and several other individuals to announce all of the new gun control legislation bills that will, of course, be coming out this legislative session, set to start on January 9th of 2023. Now, for those of you who have been geeking out with us for a while here, you know that we've been trying to look into the tea leaves and kind of figure out what might be coming down the road, and that was based on things that have been tried in the past in Olympia, as well as what some of the politicians were very boldly stating publicly. There were two issues that we've talked about already, which is an assault weapon ban and a pre-purchasing license requirement, which we're going to talk about. The third issue was an erosion of state preemption. Today's press conference did not really cover a lot of that, although if you notice, Bruce Harrell, City of Seattle mayor, was sitting right there just saying, please, please let me make my own gun laws. But the third issue was one dealing with firearm manufacturing liability and liability for FFLs, which we're also going to have to talk about. Now, for any of you who are new to fighting or combating gun control legislation, anytime proponents of gun control legislation want to get their story told, well, they just merely need to roll out the parade of horrors. Take, for example, today's cast.
I want to read you a text that I wrote my sister the morning of November 8th. I'm in lockdown right now. Possible gunshots. If anything happens, I love you so much. We learned that day a kid fired a semi-automatic weapon at least 5 times within my school.
I'm the wife of Devon Pickett Jr., who was murdered on October 19th this year, 2022, in front of our business.
Well, you've heard the stories, and it makes your heart ache, but having an aching heart is not enough. We're done coddling the gun lobby.
10 years ago, my son Tukwila was just about to go to kindergarten when the shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School happened. And I vowed from that time that I was going to work to make sure that kids in our state are safe when they go to school.
This bill is important to me for 2 reasons. One, I am a gun violence survivor. When I was 15, my best friend was shot to death by another teenager who should have never had access to a firearm.
Sponsor that bill every year, every one of those 7 years, because of the mass shooting in Mukilteo. So I can't say, kind of go on without mentioning, especially my constituent friend Paul Kramer, who's been a champion. His son was injured during that shooting.
And listen, I do not mean to discredit any one of these individuals. Their experience is real, the trauma is real, the emotions are real. However, you never heard in any one of these statements, and if you listen to the entire interview, and again, we will put the link for it down below, no one offered us any reason as to how any of these laws are going to solve these problems. Now, moving on to the first issue, and this is the one that I believe is going to garner the most attention from all of you, the lawful and responsible gun owners, which is a proposed assault weapons ban. Now, I know you're going to have several questions. The first one, of course, is how does that even pass constitutional muster? My answer, of course, is, well, it doesn't. Of course, I and the Attorney General, as you can imagine, do not see eye to eye. When the Attorney General was asked the question, his response was?
And the question again was how these proposals
handle potential conflicts with federal regulation on firearm sales.
You bet. So, a couple thoughts. Others may want to elaborate on. But as an example, just take a couple as an example. Banning the sale of assault weapons. Multiple states have done that. Federal courts across the country have upheld those. They are constitutional, right? So that's something that's been done by other states. Courts have reviewed those, and they've been upheld.
And then, of course, there were additional questions, and this is important, about whether or not, if this bill were to be enacted into law, would there be a grandfathering clause? And it was made clear that the legislation that is anticipated to drop will have a grandfathering clause, which means any firearms that you currently own in any banned platform moving forward, you would be allowed to keep. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, if any of you are thinking of last-minute gift ideas for Christmas. However, there was also mention that if any grandfathering of those firearms was allowed, there may be a requirement through a separate bill for a firearm registration. That is a state registration of any grandfathered assault weapon. Now, I know many of you are flipping out right now because I'm using the term assault weapon. I recognize that. And yes, if you look at RCW 9.41.010, there is no definition of an assault weapon. However, and we've seen this in all of these other legislatures and all of these other jurisdictions where they're passing this legislation, what the state legislature does is it creates a new definition. It defines assault weapon as a firearm, and then it will either list actual firearms or firearms with certain components, thus encapsulating almost everything in your AR, AK platforms, both rifles and pistols, making them unlawful assault weapons. That's how that legislation is likely to work. That was clearly one of the main focal points of today's press conference. Okay, the next issue, and this is again not a huge surprise to us, is a pre-purchasing license requirement, and there was discussion about that as well today. Now, what this is going to be sold, how this is going to be sold to the voters is listen, we got all these inexperienced, unsophisticated individuals owning firearms, and unless we mandate training and safety classes and things like that, we're just going to have a dangerous society, okay? The problem is, and we're seeing this in Oregon, this is not hyperbole here, okay? You can see this happening in real life directly to the south of us in the state of Oregon with ballot measure 114, because they too voted in a pre-purchasing license requirement, which created all new infrastructure for the state to set up. And of course, even though the legislation was supposed to go into effect on December 8th, the state of Oregon has no clue what they're going to do. And if it weren't for one judge down in Harney County of Oregon, the folks of Oregon right now would literally be in a position where they could not lawfully purchase a firearm regardless of their concealed carry status, regardless of any other status. They would literally not be able to purchase a firearm lawfully in the state of Oregon. But more concerning, and this is what I want everyone to be aware of, is that the entire reason for this pre-purchasing licensing requirement is to help implement portions of Initiative 1639, which still have not been implemented because there is no database by which the state can do annual background checks on current gun owners. That's right. Under Initiative 1639, the state of Washington is supposed to conduct annual background checks for no reason other than it's a new calendar year on every single gun owner in the state of Washington. The problem is we don't really have a database of every single gun owner. But wait, I got an idea. If we require everyone, even those who already have firearms, to get a pre-purchase licensing, we now have a registration of every single gun owner in the state of Washington. Now, we'll be doing additional videos because you're all going to need to learn about the Firearm Owners Protection Act of 1986, what's called FOIPA sometimes, and the prohibitions on both federal and state funds being used to create unlawful gun registries. We're not going to get too far off the beaten path, but that was definitely one of the second main cruxes of today's press conference. Okay, and then the third issue, and this was not an erosion of state preemption. And again, we have this video coming out that's going to talk about that. And I really want all of you to pay very careful attention, because I think that the attacks on RCW 9.41290 state preemption are going to go mildly unattended, mildly unnoticed by people. And yet that's the one that could have the most immediate and devastating impact on you, the lawful and responsible gun owner. And it's also the one that may have the least constitutional challenges to it. The big issue today, however, this kind of came out of left field a little bit, but not totally unexpected, is that Attorney General Ferguson and many of the legislators who were kind enough to join them to get up on their soapbox are going to be pushing for significant changes in liability as it relates both to firearms manufacturers and FFL. So essentially what the state wants to do is create a system where if a person lawfully purchases a firearm from Smith & Wesson through a lawful transfer through an FFL and then loses their mind and goes out and commits a horrible unlawful act, that the FFL and the manufacturer are going to be on a liability hook. It would be no different than if we allowed everyone to sue the Ford Motor Company every time a drunk driver T-boned a car driving a Ford. That is essentially what the state of Washington is going to want to do. Now, here is the nefarious back plan on all of this, is that there is this pesky little thing called the Constitution that really, really does prevent the gun-grabbing left from disarming us in our entirety. However, what they are trying to do is create all of these extra legislative and regulatory schemes which are going to significantly increase the cost of routine transactions. Now, those costs are going to all be passed along to the FFL, but these FFLs that are operating on paper-thin margins to begin with, those costs have to be passed on to the consumer. If it's not, it's bad business. Candidly, it could bankrupt them. So they have to pass that on to the consumer. More and more costs are going to be passed on to the consumer, and that is going to affect more and more people in underprivileged communities, by the way, the ones that same political group claims that they are looking out for. Now, just as a side note, we oftentimes complain that the people who are advancing gun control measures don't have any clue what they're talking about. And it is not necessarily hyperbole, because when you take a look at the language that's often used, you can realize that this is clearly written by somebody who is clueless about firearms. But occasionally, you can just take it straight out of their mouth. Take, for example, our governor.
Gun violence to yourself. Taking your life by suicide, gun violence by your husband or your son or daughter that is caused by the presence of a gun in your home. If there is a pistol in your home, your family members are much, much, much more likely to be injured by that pistol than some intruder in your home. That's the real risk of guns in your home.
So you can see that our governor, the leader of our state, and our attorney general, they believe that the mere existence of a firearm, the fact that a firearm is merely present in a home, regardless of any other attendant circumstances, in and of itself creates a danger to yourself and the rest of the community. This is the logic by which many of these laws are being drafted and advanced. So, what we learned today is in addition to the holy trinity of 3 gun control measures coming, that of course being an assault weapon ban, erosion of state preemption, and a pre-purchasing licensing requirement, the state is also going to go after gun manufacturers and lawful and responsible FFLs if a customer, for whatever reason, goes out and commits some kind of a heinous act. Now, as you know, we will have many, many more videos. We have this video coming out tomorrow about state preemption, and trust me, you all need to understand that so you really understand what's at stake. You may have more questions about this or anything else left of your Second Amendment rights, and if you do, you know the drill. You can always contact us at WashingtonGunLaw.com, or, of course, you can call us directly at 425-765-0487. happen. Now, let's remember, part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time at Washington Gun Law, is to know what the law is in every situation and how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching, and stay safe.